Alright, I'm going to start out by sketching the image on using a watercolor pencil. This is just from Michael's. What I'll do is figure out about where, we'll start with where his nose is. We'll kind of sketch his nose on. Now we don't want to see the sketch real bright. That's why I'm using a gray pencil. What I do is I look about the size that I'm doing it, and then I look off to the side and I try to mimic what's there. Now I'm going to change this up a little bit. I'm going to make this more my style skull. I'm just drawing on some foam core. And down here we got the teeth. Now on this we're going to do some eraser techniques and some other stuff. So we'll have kind of a general knowledge of how we get things done here. Okay, now the teeth have to kind of have a slight roll to them, so I can draw in just a little line about where that roll line is. Now the mouth is about where the center of the eyeball is. Come there, that's about where the outer part of that is. Now the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do this in grays, and then basically it's going to be black and white tone. But I'm going to start out with grays, and that way I can change it as I go. What's up, Chris? Okay, now the lower jaw is down here. And that kind of angles up towards. Now these lines are very, very soft. I mean, you can barely see them. And that's kind of what I want with this. That way I don't have to sit there and try to hide the lines. So just a little shade off of the white. If I was doing this in Copic markers, it would be like a number 2 probably. Grayscale. I think that's how they're marked. Like I said, it's very light. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's there. Alright, so we have that in. I think it's sketched in well enough. You know, we could always go back in with the sketch and add to it if we kind of feel like we need to draw some more. You know, we could get crazy with the skull. We could go nuts on it. But for the most part, you know, we just need to basically know where the lines are and what we're going to do. Alright, so now we're doing black and white, but the way I like doing black and white is I like doing blends. I like taking the black, I'm going to take some Wicked Black. Actually, I'll be right back. Alright, so check out these little packages that Wicked sent us. It's a Wicked White, Wicked Black, and a W500, the high performance reducer. Okay, now we have about 7 or 8 of these to give out to our students. So what we're going to do is throw together little competitions and little things to so you guys can win these. What do you guys think about that? Pretty cool, huh? Pretty nice of Wicked. Alright, we are ready to start. Well, time to move that PC into your studio. Now you can view this on iPods, iPads, tablets, and all that. You just have to download a Photon browser. It's a browser called Photon. And it allows you to watch Flash and video upbeat. Alright. So now, like I said, we're going to do grays. My air pressure feels a little low. I was doing detail work on a Harley. And my air pressure is at 10 pounds yet. We'll put that up to about 20. Oh yeah. That's better. That's better. Now we're at 20 psi. Alright, so I'm going to put about 6 or 7 drops of white. One thing you'll notice about the Wicked colors is they last a long time. Because you're only using drops of paint for this stuff. It's so heavy pigmented. Okay, now I'm going to add black. I'm not going to add a drop of black. What I'm going to do is I take my old bent up airbrush needles. I roll the end so it's easy to pick up off the tables. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the end of it inside the bottle. So that way I don't get too much black. I only need a little bit just to shift this to a medium gray, to a light medium gray or light gray. Now reducer. I usually do about, I don't know, I try to figure about 10%. Just basically coat the top of the paint inside the airbrush cup. And then mix it up. And now we can always alter the reducer as we go. If it feels like it's way too runny, we can add a little bit more paint. Okay, so now we got like a medium gray mixed up. Always put your cap on, because sucks when you're working on something, all of a sudden you tilt your airbrush and you didn't realize that you tilted it, and you pour your paint all down the front of your image. Alright, so let's look at the darkest spot of this, and it's in the eye. So we can come in here and we can see what our paint color is going to do. Okay, so we know we're about this dark, and that's good for this image. Now what we're going to do is just shade in the very dark area of it. Now in the reference photo it's real dark, and I'm going to alter that a little bit. Now right now I'm about 2 inches away from the image. When I want to get a dark pronounced line, I'll go in closer, and that'll give me a darker line and a lot more control. It won't have the overspray, the soft overspray. So the closer you are to your image, the sharper the line's going to be. The further away, the softer the line's going to be. So now we're going to come in here, and I'm going to add texture into this whole entire image. So that kind of makes it the fun part of airbrushing. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to fill it all in, just start hard, dark, solid. I'm going to kind of bounce the airbrush around and go in and kind of create that texture in that eye socket that we want. Now what we have to do is we have to pay attention to which way the grain of the bone would be in this area. So we have to look at that and go, okay, the grain kind of rolls upwards in here. So we have to kind of create that as we go. Now if this was truly covered in material, I mean, unless it was a plastic wrap, you wouldn't see much texture or anything, but that's why we're artists, we can play with that. Hey, the guest says that he usually starts with reducer in the bottom of the cup and then back flush to mix up. That works great. The best thing to do is have separate bottles on the side and pre-mix it, because then if you run out, your color, you're all pre-mixed, you're ready to go, you just drop in a little bit more. This reducer does take a little bit of time to react with the binders, so it's always better if you could pre-mix a little bit before. But yes, that works. I do that all the time. I'll pinch off the tip of my needle with my fingers and pull back, and that'll force the air to go back in and bubble up in the cup. Okay, now remember we have this look that it's going to be basically pushing slightly out of fabric, or whatever surface we want to call that surface. So we're going to kind of add these lines in here to give it that look. And we're going to keep on adding that texture in here. Just come in and just kind of play around with it. Little bumps here and there and stuff like that. Now if you're uncomfortable with working in transparencies to where, you know, this color is pretty dark if you look at it here, but I'm getting real light off here, you can mix up this lighter color and just work with it at that color, at that rate. Or if you want to work with the darker and you want it to take longer to get darker, then grab some extender, some transparent binder, and add that into your mix, and then it'll take longer for that color to build up the property. You'll make it more transparent without making it real runny. Okay, so I'm looking at the dark areas, and I'm bringing in those dark areas without really creating lines. I'm just creating shadow work. If that makes any sense. If you picture it like a piece of wood and you're sculpting it out, you'll just go in there and you'll hit those deep areas and kind of dig it out deeper with the shadowing. Okay, now I'm going to come in and kind of get this nose pronounced out. You know, I'm getting a little tip dry. Now the way I see that is I'm getting like a weird pattern off of the needle where I'm spraying. So when I'm spraying now, you can see here to where the pattern is no longer a round shape. It's getting splatter off of both sides of it. So what I need to do is clean off the needle. Now I like using acetone to clean with. It seems to clean the fastest. And what I'll do is I'll just take a Q-tip and just slide it on both sides. So the easiest way to clean it with the forks on. Otherwise you take off the forks and then you clean the needle. Alright, so now we'll come in much better. And now we can come in and continue with that detail. And remember, we're trying to build up texture, so we're just kind of bouncing around shadows, even though this is going to go almost black in here. If we start building it up now, we can kind of change it and sneak up on it as we go. Okay, now we bring in this shadow here. We can darken this up, kind of chisel this out, because this is going to be all chiseled in here, nice and dark. So bring that in. Now you don't want to do a real smooth area. You want it to be kind of rough. If you do it too smooth, then it's going to look like there's no texture in it. It'll look almost masked off. The other thing I'll do is if I'm sitting there pulling back on the trigger and it feels like I'm having to pull back further, again that's tip dry, what I'll do is I'll just, off the side, I'll just sit there and do a full pull back on the trigger. Just basically just blow it wide out, and that'll wet up the needle enough to get the dry spray off the needle. Okay, so now let's come in here and just we're going to add a little bit of eraser technique in this area. What I'm going to do is just shadow it up, and come in with my eraser, and we'll erase some of this area. So now what that's going to do is give us a little bit of texture in this. Now with the Wicked, the longer you wait, the harder it is to erase. So what you could end up doing is just working little sections and kind of blending it and continue working. Okay, so alright, now we come back in and we'll add some of those textures back in and just kind of bring out some shadowing in there. Use the texture that we just did as an area to highlight off of. Alright, so you can see how we brought that texture in there. Now once again, we're working pretty light, so it's not, you're not going to see a lot of difference in it. Now in here, I like putting a little crack in the bone. We'll do that. Now we don't have to worry about doing too much here, because we'll do that with the eraser. So now we could come in with the eraser and we could add that highlight right next to the bone. Right next to that crack. So we could just bring that in there and then highlight it up. So yeah, erasers just recently have become huge in the airbrush industry. We used to do it all by paint and sit there and try to work it, and mainly because like on t-shirt stuff, which is what made the airbrush well known, you can't use an eraser on a t-shirt, so you had to do it all by paint. And now we're able to go in there with the eraser. The binders are staying softer longer, so we're able to go in there and erase. Illustrators have been doing it for years. So we're just getting back to what illustrators do. Now you can see how it puts in a nice texture just by going in there and erasing out some of that gray. Now this only works if you got a white background. Okay, if you have a color background, then you either have to spray white sealer first, or you have to go in with the white. This is a foam core. I'm airbrushing on foam core right now. It works with metal. It works with, you know, I've erased on fiberglass on everything. A lot of the times what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll do the sealer first and then work on top of sealer. The airbrush paint seems to really like working with sealers. Okay, so now let's add a little bit of highlight. Now remember, the highlight's not going to go down into this dark area. We want that to stay dark to where it looks like it rolls under and kind of shadows under. You can see how the eraser really adds that texture into there with little work. I'll come in here and shadow this some more. Now remember, the dagger strokes are really important and dots and stuff, because you can see that I'm having to aim my airbrush. And if you're not used to where that airbrush is going to spray when you aim it, you might have problems. Okay, now if you're used to painting hard surfaces, non-porous surfaces, which is like your helmet, your automotive surfaces, fiberglass surfaces, carbon fiber, metal, aluminum, all that type of stuff, it's better to practice on a piece of metal, a piece of aluminum or something, because then it's going to react exactly the way that you're used to reacting. Right now the foam core has kind of a smooth cardboard feel to it. It doesn't like to soak in too much, but if I saturate it, it will. So it doesn't try to skate as much. If you're used to something that's going to skate on you, like the hard surfaces, then you want to practice on that, because that'll give you the real feel. I mean, it'd be like practicing. It'd be like practicing with crayons and then trying to pick up an airbrush. Well, I was practicing. Yeah, you were practicing drawing and stuff, shadowing, but once you get that airbrush in your hand, now you got to do a mechanical device too. So it's kind of good to practice with what you're going to be working on. I go to a metal supply place that we have in town, and I get their aluminum sign blanks. They have a real thin aluminum that's already powder coated white. You could get white or black already. And I buy 4 by 10 sheets of it, 4 feet by 10 feet, then cut them up. So I'm going to add just a little gray shadow in here, in this cheekbone area, and that's only to build up a little bit so I can come in and start doing my erasing. So now I'll come in and I'll just start adding my little textures. We know that there's a little hole here, so we'll add a little highlight on that. Now the eraser I'm using, once again, is a Perfection 7058B. It's a typewriter style eraser. It's a hard gray eraser, so it erases quickly. If I want really soft lines, I have another eraser, which is a pink eraser, which is a Perfection 7056. And then that's a real soft eraser. I can come in here and just kind of take out the tones. and it doesn't erase as harsh as the other one. So you could just basically take it down a layer. I use both, but for getting that texture out, I like the typewriter one. It's a whitish gray eraser. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here and just kind of add the shadowing to these and kind of bring them back out. Now you can see why I went in real light, because otherwise we can get dark quick. So your first color that you're going to erase, just make sure that you're real soft on it. Let's go ahead and make this little hole here that's over there. I think that's a sinus hole. Alright, so come in here and kind of work that in. Now what I'll do is I'll take the airbrush about 3 inches away and just kind of soften that whole area up and kind of blend all those colors in. So that way it doesn't look like it's black and white, harsh. And then we can come in with a pink eraser and just kind of bring out some of those highlights just barely. What you don't want to do is over texture it to where it basically looks like it's a Rocky Mountain Ridge. You just want those soft textures in there, just so you look at it and you go, hey, that's a little different. Doesn't look so smooth. The hole, I think it's a sinus hole. I think that's what that hole is on the skulls that are always right by the nose. Alright. So now we got the other part of the nose. Now I drew this in with a really soft watercolor gray pencil. So I have lines here. You guys can't really see them because they are that soft. They're just barely there. So now what I'm going to do is just bring this in. Now you can see with the airbrush you could build up the texture just by bouncing the airbrush around and not spraying just a solid color. Just kind of bring that in. And that's how with one color you could get so much depth, is by not spraying it 100% the whole time. Just kind of allowing it to bounce around a little bit. Now when you work with stencils, you can do the same exact thing. Just take the stencil and just lightly hit the stencil to where you get real soft outline, and that gives you all your shapes, and then come in and do all your freehand work. Stencils are basically designed to give you the overall shape at first, and then it's up to you to make it your own. So now I'll come in with the eraser and just kind of bring out some highlights in here. You can see how fast it'll erase when you just spray it. But we sprayed this a while ago, and I'm having to work a lot harder to bring those textures out. Now with the illustration colors, they stay wet a lot longer. You have a lot longer time to work with that binder before it starts to lock up. Whereas the Wicked, it's a lot quicker. Okay, so now we can come back in here and tone those areas down. We don't want them to stand out that much. Like I said, you just want the texture to be in the background more than the foreground. You don't want it to look like it was done with an eraser. You want it to look like it's airbrushed. Actually, you just want them to look at it and go, how did he do that? That's what I like the best about airbrushing, is when you get done and they look at it and they go, how? You know, and I mean, back in the day, using an eraser would have been called cheating. Just like using a projector and using all the other stuff that we use to get the job done. Customers don't care as long as their job looks really, really cool. Now we have to shadow this to where this looks like it has a center point. So I'm going to bring in just a little gray in there, and then I'll come in with the eraser and we'll pull this line out. See how nice that eraser works to bring out those highlights? And the shadow is going to kind of come in here and have a little texture in that shadow. So now I can come in here and shadow this again and knock down some of that texture. Then we can come in here and just kind of add to the texture on the highlight side. Get the airbrush real close, you get a real nice fine line. And we'll bring back out some texture. A lot of people are using the battery-powered erasers. They all work. I like working by hand, it's a little slower. And you kind of get more of the feel of how it's working. Alright, so we'll leave that way for right now. Let's shadow this up a little bit. That eraser marks in there, I don't want them to be so pronounced. Okay. Now we're going to come in and work the teeth. Now teeth, what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll just create the lines of where the teeth are first. Okay, so we got the top of the teeth. Trying to set up the camera for you. And then we'll come in and we'll do the bottom of the teeth. Got a little tip dryer, I'll clean off my needle. Now if you notice, I'm not going all the way up the teeth. We're just doing the top and bottom of them. Okay. Do the top row of teeth. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go ahead and bring in a light shadow on this because we're going to texture these teeth. We'll just bring in a light shadow from the top coming down. Okay, now we're going to come in with a little bit of texture. We'll do just like the bone, but now all this is going to be strictly up and down. I'm going to highlight mainly in the center. We're going to do the texture, pull the texture out of the teeth. We're not going to go all the way up to that dark line. We'll just stay a little bit away. And then we'll come in here and erase most of this. What this is doing is adding that line grain pattern that teeth have. Okay, now with that texture in, we're going to come in and start shadowing, pulling from the upper arc down. And we have some texture in there, but then we're just going to do light over the top of it. Kind of pull that dark color in. We're pulling it down towards the bottom. Now right now that outline looks really weird at the very bottom, but we'll make that look right by adding the shadow below the teeth. As you can see, I'm not outlining each tooth. I'm just shadowing just the one side of the tooth, which is bringing out the teeth. It's mainly just that one side that I'm hitting. Now we'll come back in and pull the highlights out. Now you can do this with white paint if you don't want to use an eraser, or if you're doing it on t-shirt. But it's the same technique. You go off the bottom and then pull in the white by going up. Let's see, we're doing shadow from the top and white from the bottom. And we're mainly erasing on one side of the tooth. And this will give us that spherical tooth look. Or cylinder. Okay, you can see how we're getting that texture in there. Now let's go ahead and just bring in the dark down here. This will get rid of that outline look of the tooth, because this in here is all just real dark. See how we just created that? So now you're starting to get the tooth look without really outlining the teeth and drawing in the teeth to full. Now we'll work the skull above it a little bit, which we have these little shadow areas because the tooth bumps out the skull. And now we could bring in the eraser. We can highlight this a little bit. Bring in some of that texture. Can't wait to see your guys' skulls. You know, with that erased, you can tell it's too harsh, so we need to come in here and knock that down. We could come in and we could add more of the texture. We'll do this as a two-part class. Next week we'll do this. We'll finish up on this. TJ and I are gonna sit down and figure out what type of competitions we can do for some of the giveaways. So now this is just the one medium gray. It's almost a primer gray, if you want to think about what color it is. So just do half the skull. Just do basically what I got done. And then we'll pick it up next week. That'll give you a chance to kind of get up to where we are. So it's Airbrushing for Newbies on Facebook. Go throw in what you did over there. See how you guys are going with the classes. I'll tailor them to what you guys want help with. If you guys want special classes, let me know. We'll figure out what type of project we can do together. And if there's something you guys really want to see, then we'll go from there. Okay, so now I'm just going to get 3 inches away and just kind of shadow this all down. Kind of knock down all the brightness of this. So this is what we got done. We got about half the skull done. And this is just primer gray. About a primer gray. Mixed up with Wicked. And we did a whole bunch of eraser techniques and some other techniques. So once again, thanks for showing up to the class. And we will finish up next week. See you same bat time, same bat